A mother is accused of coldly killing her 3 young children, one after the other, allegedly even singing while doing so. We are going to break down this case with attorney George Parnham, who previously represented Andrea Yates. She was famously accused of murdering her own children in cold blood. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We got another tough one for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say this is easy. These are some of the worst cases we cover, but it's an important one to talk about. And it concerns mother Rachel Henry, who is accused of murdering her 3 children back in January of 2020. Her 3-year-old son, her 1-year-old daughter, and her 7-month-old baby girl, her daughter. The 22-year-old allegedly confessed to police that she smothered her kids to death, starting with the 1-year-old. In fact, according to a probable cause statement, her son witnessed this. He tried to fight Henry off. He yelled no. And she then allegedly proceeded to murder him by placing her hand over his nose and mouth, all the while singing to him while she did it. Henry apparently confessed to doing the same to her youngest daughter as well. And she then allegedly positioned all 3 children's bodies on the couch to make it look like they were sleeping. It's truly an unthinkable crime. It honestly does not get worse than these kinds of stories. Now, the 911 phone call was apparently made by the great aunt of these children, and she apparently said on the call, please hurry, they're all dead, all 3 babies are dead. Officers, fire personnel, they raced to the home, and indeed they found all 3 children dead. And based on body cam footage, when officers arrived to the home, Henry appeared to be crying and says, I put them down for a nap and thought that they were sleeping. She goes on to allegedly say they were sick and we were trying to get them an appointment, and I told his dad so many times, please take them to the doctor. And I think one of the most dramatic moments in this body cam footage is how tough it is for the responding officers to arrive on that scene, to see what they saw. Now, Henry later on would allegedly tell police, I'm asking the Lord for forgiveness so I can move on and move fresh. It's been alleged that Henry had a methamphetamine addiction, that she had been acting strangely in the days leading up to the killings, but no clear exact motive has been released by authorities. And it's also been reported that at the time of the kids' deaths, Henry had just moved to Arizona from Oklahoma with her fiance and the kids, and it was in Oklahoma where there apparently had been multiple domestic violence incidents and welfare checks, and social services had even removed the children from the home at one point. It was believed the kids might have been abused. Henry reportedly had no job. She was just spending every day at home with her children, and then this happens. Now, the case has not yet gone to trial. Henry has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors have indicated that they are seeking the death penalty, but the trial is expected, I believe, in March of 2025. I want to bring in right now criminal defense attorney George Parnham, who has experience in these cases because he represented Andrea Yates. This was the woman who was accused of drowning her 5 children, and after 2 trials, she was ultimately found not guilty by reason of insanity. George, thank you so much for coming on. Sorry this is the case that we have to talk about, but what are your thoughts when you read something like this?
What a tragedy, what a senseless tragedy that a mother would take the life of children that she gave life to. Unlike any other type of homicide, this is by far and away the most hard to digest, to understand, basically because of our own experience. We all have mothers, and we all were raised by moms, and to hear something like this and to experience it as I did in Andrea's case is by far and away the toughest case in 53 years of practice that I think I've ever endured. I recall, for instance, driving to the courthouse, hearing the news on the radio, and I immediately changed channels. I did not want to understand, I did not want to even think about a mother doing something of this fashion. The state did, in fact, in Andrew's case, seek the death penalty. The jury rejected that, came back with life. I appealed that case, and got a reversal based on the perjured testimony of the state psychiatrist, Dr. Dietz. Went back to trial, and the jury ultimately, as you indicated, acquitted her. It's so important, as you've mentioned, to search for ulterior motives, if any. Could there be anything out there that could explain a mother taking the life of a person to whom she gave life? Spousal revenge, father unfaithful, anything that could give the state or the government the opportunity to say, this is the reason that it happened, not insanity, not mother's mental illness. This is the reason she did what she did. As unimaginable as that is, frequently you will hear that from the prosecuting authorities, that there were ulterior motives other than the mental illness of the mom.
Very disturbing story. It's an important one to tell, though. It's an important one to highlight. And I want to thank you again for coming to us as we're able to bring you these cases. And I will tell you, we're actually able to do that and bring you these shows because of the support that we get from our sponsors. And I just want to highlight our incredible partner right now, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Look, if you should get hurt, this is a team you may want in your corner. And the emphasis is on team, because not only do they have 1,000 attorneys, but their clients also get a dedicated army that includes case investigators, paralegals, customer case specialists, all focused on maximizing a settlement. Morgan & Morgan is a firm that has secured multi-million-dollar settlements and verdicts across the country. The whole process can be done from your smartphone. It is so easy. There's no upfront fee. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar. People in these kinds of cases, myself included, are trying to understand and make sense of this, even though there is no way to make sense of it. And one of the ways that we talk about is, could this be insanity, right? That might be an explanation. Now, I looked up what the law said about insanity in Arizona, and my understanding is that it says a person may be found guilty, except insane, if at the time of the commission of the criminal act, the person was afflicted with a mental disease or defect of such severity that the person did not know the criminal act was wrong. Now, if we put that to the side, here is where, George, I think the difficulty of that would be in this kind of case. Because I mentioned before, on the body cam, she seemingly tries to say that her kids were sick and she gave them ibuprofen and put them down for a nap. Then she goes out and allegedly confesses to what she did. So was she not being honest about that? And then she says that she and the aunt went out for food while her fiance was watching the kids, and she allegedly said, quote, "They fell asleep watching a movie and their dad came home and he was laying on the couch and I told him to watch them." So in my point of view, that seems bad for an insanity defense because she later confessed. So it seems like she's allegedly lying because she knows what she did is wrong. Would I be totally off base here that I think that could be a problem for her to assert that?
Yeah, I think that would be a problem. However, I think what is important to acknowledge is that all of these factors that we're talking about now, they're all after the fact. It could well be that she, after she did what she is accused of doing, that she realized after the fact that, wow, this is not the right thing to do. And she comes up with the excuses or explanations to basically explain her state of mind after the fact. That during when the kids were killed, it could well be that, as for instance in Andrea's case, Andrea thought she was saving their souls and truly believed that, and confessed right after it happened. The officer comes out to the scene, comes out to the house after Andrea called 911. What happened? Well, I just killed my kids. And they're all lined up in bed. Officer didn't believe it. Goes back and he sees the children apparently asleep, and they're all deceased. And this is the mindset of an individual that does such a horrendous act. As I mentioned before, unlike any other type of homicide.
Here's the thing with that, right? I could debate whether or not, somebody allegedly lying to law enforcement after the fact could be, it seems to me, it just seems more problematic for her, an insanity kind of argument. Because again, while I understand that, at the time, at the moment, they may have that break and then afterwards they realize what they did and they don't want to get in trouble, but doesn't necessarily negate the fact they might have been insane at the time. Here's where I think there's an issue in this case, because there was a part in the probable cause affidavit when she starts allegedly chasing the 3-year-old around. This is after he witnesses her allegedly killing his sister, and she's chasing him around, and she allegedly stops when 2 other people come into the house, and I believe this was her fiance and the aunt, and then Henry allegedly takes her son to a back bedroom, the family member's none the wiser, and she kills him. That's the allegation. And she didn't tell her fiance or her aunt what had happened. So again, that signals to me she knew what she was doing was wrong. George, I throw it back to you.
And I think that's a valid evaluation. However, again, we go back to this whole premise that she knew what she was doing was the right thing at the time for her children. She also knew that nobody else would believe that she was doing the right thing for her kids. And therefore, she had to come up with excuses. She had to come up with activities, taking the child away, not talking to other individuals, because in her mind, she knew that the world would judge her as doing something that's wrong, but in her mind, she was doing what was right for her children. And that's where we have to focus, the mindset of the person accused. What's going on in her mind from her own standpoint. And we make those decisions that you've so accurately indicated based on all of the circumstances. And I know that the state, again, is seeking the death penalty. It's just it's a horrible situation.
I wanted to ask you about that. Look, you mentioned before that these cases stand out as some of the worst you can possibly imagine. I agree with you. I also have to believe these are some of the toughest cases to defend. You want to talk about having an unlikable client, a client accused of murdering her 3 young children. I imagine it is very, very tough to find a jury that can be fair and impartial in these kinds of cases. And you add on to the fact that this is a death penalty eligible case. How tough is this for you to defend? And how tough is it for you to find a fair and impartial jury in this kind of case?
Well, it's very tough to defend. And, jurors will invariably shake their head and say, this is not a barroom brawl gone bad or a drug deal gone bad. This is the very essence of our own existence, a mother that takes the life of a child. And so it's jurors will take a look at the defendant and can't really imagine doing or having someone do what they've experienced in life that is being raised by a mother. So it's something that has to be evaluated. I will make a comment. I think it's so important to have the defendant evaluated by expert witnesses. That accomplishes 2 things. Number one, the expert can give an opinion, as we did in Yates's case, about rightness or wrongfulness or her mindset. And secondly, it avoids having to put your client on the witness stand. The expert can testify and by all means and I would suggest to the attorneys, I don't mean to presuppose that they haven't already thought this through, but videotape that and Do not be present during that videotape. Have that one-on-one with the expert witness and your client. This will alleviate the impression that a state's prosecutor can suggest that, the defense lawyer was orchestrating this whole issue. Regardless of what's said, videotape that and have that information available for other experts to take a look at, so that that videotape and your client's explanations can be brought forth to a jury without having to put her on the witness stand.
It's really good legal advice there, and we'll see if this progresses to a trial, if a deal is not put on the table, because sometimes we see in these cases, maybe it would be she pleads guilty and they take the death penalty off the table. We're not quite there yet. We're still trying to make sense, as I said, of a case where you can't really make sense of. George Parnham, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking your time. Sad, tragic case, but
it's horrible, horrible.
Yeah. George, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.